Okay, I'm Andrew Stuck. I'm one of the original four founders of the Urban Tree Festival. This is our fifth year of the Urban Tree Festival, the third year we've run a writing competition. Um, what's extraordinary now is, of course, we've got many events that have taken place on the ground and quite a few have taken place online. The advantage of running an event like this online is that we can get pretty much all the authors in the room from wherever they are. And I said pretty much all the authors. We are missing one author, and that's Nancy Charlie, but she has very kindly recorded herself reading and will be playing a video. Now, the Urban Tree Festival is actually run by a huge bunch of volunteers. And this year we had sufficient funding left over from last year, goodness me, I don't know how that happened, to recruit a coordinator, a lovely person called Camille. So a big thank you for Camille for saying that she would be our coordinator. And she coordinated things and did loads more. We had undergraduates from Goldsmiths University in London who've been putting up all sorts of social media. We've had some key help though from the Mayor of London, from the Woodland Trust, and especially from CPRE London. Now, CPRE London is actually called a countryside charity. It's a bit bizarre that a countryside charity gets involved with the Urban Tree Festival, but their London office is their big sort of policy arm where they go out campaigning to MPs and things. And their outgoing director, Neil Sinden, has been a real stalwart, and he and Simon Edwards, Greg Packman and Paul Wood are the key people who've really brought the Tree Festival together this year. So a big thank you to them. And I want to especially thank Sarah Westcott, because Sarah Westcott stepped in when we had a little bit of a crisis because our original compere for this event wasn't available, and she's come in and she's very kindly offered to be your compere. So I'm going to try my hand now of reading her biography and putting it in the chat at the same time. So you'll have a laugh at how inept I am at doing this. Here we go. So Sarah Westcott has published a pamphlet and two collections with Pavilion Poetry, Liverpool University Press. Sarah was a news journalist for 20 years. I notice she doesn't reveal which paper, but news journalist for 20 years, now works as a freelance tutor and writer. Poems have appeared on beer mats, wow, billboards and buses, baked into bread, installed in a nature reserve and triggered by footsteps. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Andrew, and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. I think it's really wonderful to celebrate and welcome this beautiful book. Have you got the book with you, people? Do wave them on screen if you have one. Yes, great to see. And of course, the 12 beautiful prose and poem pieces within. And each of them, I felt, had something really pertinent to say about the theme of healing trees, and each was so kind of original and unique. So I'm just going to start by saying a little bit about the pamphlet for those that might not necessarily have it with them. And it's basically an anthology that's published to coincide with the Urban Tree Festival. And all the pieces inside, which we're going to hear tonight, were selected from over 100 entries to a competition run this spring. And entrants were asked to write about healing trees as poems or stories in 250 words or less, which is a really, really short amount of words, as these writers will know. And this lovely theme, which feels, again, very pertinent to our times, that was actually set by the previous winners last year, Chris Cunningham for poetry and Sarah Wheeler for prose. And I understand both might be here tonight. And they chose the theme as they felt it was pertinent to these challenging times. And they also volunteered to be the judges in the competition. joined on the poetry side by Anita Roy, and on the prose side by N.G. Bristow. So thank you very much to the judges and to everyone who submitted. But tonight is all about celebrating these 12 beautiful pieces of writing within these covers. And I really urge you to buy this book. It's absolutely lovely, beautiful illustrations as well. So Andrew's asked me to read one of my poems. And before I do, I just wanted to think about what it is about trees that so kind of compels us as humans and as writers. And there's something about the fact that they are worlds in themselves, harboring species within them, but also this idea that's being increasingly proved in science, that they can actually speak and listen, and they can listen to the light and the lengthening days, and they can listen to each other. And another really intriguing thing that I think comes out in the anthology is the idea that trees embody this kind of deep time, well beyond the timescales of our own lives. And yet they also undergo these really extraordinary seasonal shifts all the time. And I was just looking at a tree this afternoon in our garden, a walnut tree, and it's just come into its kind of fullest leaf point. And it's so beautiful, just each singular leaf. So I wanted to share a quick poem with you before we hear your work. And this poem was inspired by a beautiful time-lapse film of an acorn growing into a sapling. And I just wanted to share it because I think with trees, it's quite easy to overlook them, isn't it? And how kind of magical and extraordinary they are, and what's literally happening just outside our windows. So I'll share the poem with you now. I have it on as some text because I think it works quite nicely to see it. Acorn. What lies inside so palely, cleft along the grain, the kin of itself, and rushing over the body mites, it stirs, stone rolled from a tomb's mouth. Now a body too large for its bindings, all shouldered, hums and heaves, so politely, but never turning back. A wide, smooth face, a penguin, a waistcoated, rotund gentleman. He leaves behind his bed, and across some boundary he shoves, cumbersome and plucked, so vulnerable. With designs on himself, he begins to set about it. A root, a cord, the nerve of it, to look about like that, his feathered head twitching, frayed with sensitivities, quite sure of his direction, the little gonads opened, a jewelry box, the jewels now ignored. Just one tip, just one, oh tenders, rudely, bravely pushing into new lungs. 2 leaves, so very new, so soft and keenly made. A pause to taste the light and air and answer this. So that was a poem to open up this afternoon. Thank you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce our very first reader. And I believe that she's going to appear via video. So this is Nancy Charlie reading her poem Applejack's Wassail. And Nancy is the Royal Asiatic Society's archivist. Her latest poetry collection, How Death Came into the World, was published by Smokestack in 2020. So we're looking forward to hearing Nancy's wonderful poem.
Hopefully this works. A thumbs up for everybody. Let's see.
Applejack's wassail. When dewdrops dew grass blades with righteous rainbows, when hedgehogs awaken, daffodils dance and blow, when the apple bears blossom and bees fill the trees, then you'll go a-roaming to find your heart's ease. You may wander through meadows, you may amble by streams, but you'll find me in the orchard as the stalk of your dreams. The sun coaxes fair arms to blush at its sight, when roses pink hedgerows and fledglings take flight, when the apple buds spurt, their girths growing round, then you'll go a-roaming over hardened rich ground. You may wander through meadows, you may amble by streams, but you'll find me in the orchard, ripening flesh of your dreams. When breezes tease old leaves and toss them afloat, when apples are bobbed or don toffee coats, when millstones grind and presses squash fruit, then you'll go a-roaming to muddy your boots. You may squander in meadows, you may dawdle by streams, but you'll find me in the orchard at the core of your dreams. When the icy north wind wails a ghostly drum beat, leave the applewood fire its sweet-smelling heat, chase a robin through the blizzard to find the last fruit, raise your wassailing cider to toast apple tree roots. You may tramp snow-filled meadows, you may skate frozen streams, but you'll find me in the orchard, the very pip of your dreams.
That was fabulous, wasn't it? Such lovely musicality. And I love the way she writes about the seasons, and there's this lovely sense of circles and cycles, and this kind of joyful raising of the grass, raise your wassailing cider to toast apple tree roots. Absolutely lovely, lovely poem. And I think it was beautiful hearing that recorder, wasn't it? Just a lovely way to introduce the poem. Fantastic. Okay, so our next reader is Jude Higgins, reading her wonderful prose piece, Alder. And just say a little bit about Jude before we hear from her. So Jude is a widely published flash fiction writer, and she organises the Bath Flash Fiction Award. She directs Ad Hoc Fiction Press and Flash Fiction Festivals UK. So you're obviously a very busy lady, Jude, and we'd love to hear your piece. So warm welcome. Hi, Jude.
Hi, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good. I just want to start off by thanking Andrew and everybody associated with the Urban Tree Festival, because I just think it's such an amazing thing. So many different events on and brilliantly organised like this one. So also to have the opportunity to enter a competition that involves trees is really nice. And I just wanted to say that I wrote about the alder because I think it's quite a unassuming tree. You don't sort of think about it. Usually people see great oaks or ashes or beeches, but the alder lives down by the riverside or in boggy areas, and despite that, as with many trees, it has many healing gifts. So this is a story about its gifts which weren't immediately taken up. Alder. After the years of strife, and to make amends before her daughter went away, the mother made her a shield of alder, the wood as hard as iron. But her daughter never used it. She sewed her daughter a dress with cloth dyed brown from alder twigs, red from alder bark, green from its flowers. But her daughter never wore it. She took out the pith from a green alder shoot and made a whistle for her daughter, but her daughter hardly called. The years passed. The mother fell ill, and then the daughter returned. She made tea with older essence, but her mother managed only a few sips. She built a fire with older logs that burned bright and fiercely, but her mother stayed cold. She whittled a goddess figure from older wood and placed it on her mother's pillow for the healing, but it was too late. That spring, after her mother had gone, the daughter went down to the boggy land where the alders grew. She gathered catkins to make a black dye for her clothes, fashioned another whistle from the alder's new green shoots, and when she called, one long sorrowful note, full of the love she'd stored up but never voiced, the wind picked up and the alders sighed. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Jude. That was utterly beautiful, wasn't it, to hear you reading that? And I just love the idea of these generational kind of gifts of understanding being threaded through these women's lives, and each kind of coming to be understood and realised in their own time. And then threaded through all that, this wonderful presence of the alder, as you say, the sense that it sort of outlasts individual lives, but it's there as this wonderful presence. And I also wanted to praise that beautiful lyrical last line, the wind picked up and the alders sighed. What a wonderful note to end on. And thank you so much, Jude. That was beautiful. Okay, our next reader is Sally Duffin, reading her poem Medicine Woods. So welcome, Sally. Hi. I'll just say a little bit about Sally. So Sally is a creative and health writer, and she's also a registered nutritionist living in York in England. And Sally is currently studying from an MA in creative writing. So you're very busy too. Welcome, Sally. We'd love to hear your piece.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for organising the festival. Yeah, this poem was inspired by, well, lockdown really, and having to spend a lot of time online working, doing teaching work and nutrition work, and just needing to escape. And very luckily, where we live on the edge of York, there's a small hill and some woodlands up there as well. So it was lovely to just get up into there, into the woods, hence the title of this poem. So it's called Medicine Woods. Take these woods like a dose of medicine, a strong draft against a flickering screen of perpetual emails, Zoom meetings, a prophylactic dose of petrichor, the earthy floor filling your lungs. Train your eyes not on the newsfeed, but a darting wren shape-shifting in the hawthorn, the hair-like villi on crumbling fungi, shattered by last night's summer storm, and doe-eye rabbits down the path. Scroll past oak, ash, beech and pine. Swipe your fingertips across the keyboards of jagged bark encrusted with lichen, desktop wrist rests replaced by mossy stumps and soft leaf mulch. Tune out all notifications. Turn your ear to the skylark ascending, her fluttering song pitched high against the cawing crows squabbling over carrion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sally. Fantastic. I really enjoyed the shifts in perspective in your poem, so that you're drawing us to focus on what is in front of us, and we've got so many other distractions. And it's in this way, it's quite subversive, this poem, and I found that really compelling. And I also wanted to draw attention to these cawing crows squabbling over the carrion. Isn't that a brilliant last image? And we might think, who are these cawing crows squabbling over carrion? Are they just crows, or might they be standing for something more? So fabulous. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
And I should say to everyone, do keep an eye on the chat, because there's some really lovely comments about your work. So do make sure you have a look and see how much people are enjoying. Okay, our next reader is Lawrence Sullivan, reading his prose piece each and every April. Welcome, Lawrence. Where are you? There he is. Hi, Lawrence. Lawrence is a PhD candidate at Northumbria University, and he has appeared in over 60 publications, and he actually started writing fiction as an undergraduate. So fantastic to hear you, Lawrence. Welcome, and take it away.
Brilliant, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for holding this whole event and running the competition. It's all been pretty amazing. I was inspired to write the story really by the longevity of trees, how long they can outlive us and how important they are to kind of our collective memory, but also, I guess, more importantly, how important they can be to us personally in our personal histories, and how they can act as like an anchor to a specific memory of a specific place or a specific time, or in the case of this story, a specific person, and how they can really connect us to people whom we might have lost, who might no longer be here. Mrs. Ezeki's favourite tree finally came into focus. An explosion of pink, the weeping cherry blossoms flowers fell in wisps like candy floss. Beneath its branches lay a little bench, which she ambled towards and then came down to rest upon. Exhaling deeply, she unwrapped 2 rice balls and placed them beside herself, one for her, the other for her husband, Keitel. "Do you remember him?" Mrs. Ezeki said aloud, her eyes fixed forward on the picnicking families. "No, I'm sure you do." Mrs. Ezeki picked up one rice ball and pushed the other to the empty side of the bench. "You can have it," she said, looking back towards the tree. "Not like he can come and collect it anymore." The tree's branches blew gently in the breeze, tickling the back of her neck as Keitel once would. A few of its petals shook loose, landing on the unclaimed rice ball in the process. Mrs. Ezeki smiled to herself, her fingers caressing the blossoms fondly. Then her eyes fell upon the tree's trunk, which had only grown thicker with time. She, meanwhile, had worn away, thinner than washi paper, purple hues spreading out like ink blots beneath her skin. "I'm glad you haven't forgotten us just yet," she whispered. "You made our first date with these branches. The privacy you provided us with was much appreciated." A sudden gust sent a shower of blossoms over Mrs. Ezeki, bathing her in a youthful pink hue. "Oh, I'm always young again around you."
That was fabulous, Lawrence. I love the kind of life and animacy that you brought to this beautiful piece. And when I read it in the book itself, what really stood out for me was this lovely tenderness and exactitude of the language. And it's almost quite filmic, isn't it? We're there with the people and seeing those gorgeous colours. And I also wanted to point out, again, this wonderful line at the end, "I'm always young around you," with that exclamation mark. And I feel like that's something we might all feel every April when we encounter our trees coming back into leaf and blossom. So that was wonderful. Thank you, Lawrence. Fabulous. Okay, our next reader is Sarah Stegan. Hello, Sarah. Welcome. Sarah is reading her beautiful poem, Trees of Ukraine. And Sarah is a nature writer. She's also an inclusion advocate and an avid cyclist. And she's currently working on a memoir about her Dutch rural landscape, apples and autism. That sounds fascinating. So very warm welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, I'm just great to be here. And the piece I wrote was inspired by watching the news, watching these war unfold with tree-lined streets turning into a war zone. And writing felt pointless and hopeless as well, because it didn't really seem like anything one should do in that at that point in time. But then spring came and I saw the trees coming into bloom, and I thought, well, trees, they also bring such hope and resilience, and that's why I wrote this piece, Trees of Ukraine. Trees of Ukraine line city streets, leafless watchers, curtained in dust, cordite clouding trunks, outreached limbs, shells bloom. Since that day, the trees of Ukraine rise fearless above basements and air raid shelters, surprised by invaders. Some trees in Ukraine are black, stocky, charred, limbs amputated, missing, pointing fingers, hurt, rootless, dying, weep. Trails of black tears run down their trunks. Some trees in Ukraine are mottled white, pulsating lifeblood, reaching out to people, blood-red skies, buildings, eye sockets, dry and white. Some trees in Ukraine wear camo, soldier on amidst hostilities, roots gripping tightly into the earth. Some trees in Ukraine shelter, teddy bears, toys, burnt out trucks and cars, brick, ash, splintered glass, watching sky defenders, city dwellers scurry. Some trees in Ukraine wait, hopeful, rail thin, black and white signposts of spring, coiled, hibernating, for a people scarred and proud. Some trees in Ukraine, in besieged cities, Bucha, Irpin, Mariupol, Hostomel, Kharkiv, Kherson, Melitopol, unknown to us before, are more than just trees, are life, hope, witness, windows. Some trees in Ukraine will tell stories, later will heal us, perhaps in future playing children will give them names, poke fingers in their scars, name those who fought, those who died, those they saw survive. The trees of Ukraine are leafless shelters, charred reminders of before, still alive, hanging on, waiting for the silent spring of peace, for the bell to ring in the last round and blossom pink teardrop petals for all of us. Remember.
Thank you, Sarah. Wow, that was so powerful and moving. And there's something in the act of listing and telling and naming the cities that feels really profound and important, but also the way this poem manages to kind of simultaneously hold so many different ideas of sorrow and loss, but also hope, like you were talking about at the beginning when you introduced it. I think it's incredible how a poem can hold so much. And isn't it incredible how language can do that as well? And yeah, a really fearless poem with a very unflinching eye. Really powerful to hear you read it. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so our penultimate reader before we have a quick comfort break is Rosaline Lynch. Hello, Rosaline. Hi. Rosaline is reading her brilliant prose piece, The Fish Tank Mangroves. Rosaline is an Irish community worker and a writer in the East End of London. So we're really looking forward to hearing your piece, Rosaline. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and thank you, Andrew, and thanks, Sarah, and also Alvin Lowe for, I think it's just such a beautifully illustrated yeah, pamphlet. It's absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, mine was inspired, the Fish Tank Mangroves was inspired by the idea of sea trees. Just love that idea. And how mangroves protect coastlines, and just an amazing job they do. And then links to obviously climate crisis and migration and homelessness. And also then the idea, you know, the idea that maybe at the end of the day, because the theme I think was all around healing trees, or that trees might heal the earth better when we're gone. Yeah, so I'll start. The Fish Tank Mangroves. The fish tank in the pet shop window has no fish. At night, every 3 minutes, a sign lights up to say, watch. And a motor behind the rock starts a wave, past a piece of coral, to seagrass sprouts, and up a little bank to bonsai trees. The splash soaks up in their mini mangrove limbs, while the spray lands on their leaves as they rest and grow out the top of the tank. I watch from outside until I'm asleep. 3 postcards are in a holder on the window, showing a sun-bleached cross-section of the sea the fish tank represents. Save the mangroves, the postcard back says, and underneath, save the man. The pet shop's been closed for months. The solar panel on the roof keeps the motor going, but not the fish. I watch their bodies disappear. The animals left months ago, carried in cages 2 by 2 into an air-conditioned van. They'd no room for the fish tank, plumbed into water pipes they tried to follow, but they connect underground like roots, the surveyor says, even though the pet shop is just a porta-cabin built on bricks on parking lot asphalt. And when the light in the pet shop window goes out for good, I follow cracks in the ground along the water pipe routes to the source of my window world, to real mangroves, real seagrass, real coral, and a real deep sea. And the light comes on, and I let the waves watch over me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosaline. Wonderful to hear that. I really admired the way this is an allegory almost for the natural world, and that you have these really subtle biblical echoes. So you talk about the animals carried in 2 by 2. And I also love the sense of the ecological idea of everything being connected in your poem. And that wonderful line near the end, I follow cracks in the ground along the water pipe routes to the source of my window world, to real mangroves, real seagrass, real coral, and a real deep sea. Yeah, so assured and powerful. Thank you, Rosaline. So we've come to the end of our first half of this evening, and we're going to have a quick break. Wonderful. So welcome back to our second half, where we hear 6 more fabulous pieces, and then we get the wonderful announcement at the end of the winners. So I'm going to start by sharing another poem. This time I'll just read from my first collection. And I chose this poem obviously because it's connected to trees, and it's a poem written in the voice of a wood in spring. And we live in southeast London, on the edge of London and Kent. And there are still these pockets of kind of ancient woodland. And this is a little wood called Bexley Wood, which I used to walk through every day, taking my kids to school. So this is called Spring Wood. Tap, tap, knocking softly, let me in. Leaves unlearning the cold, old cold loosening as malt. Dress rags falling. Warmth, faint, seeps into layers of song, nets flung and falling. The rain, a wealth of it, 1,000 tiny feet or beats, points of impact opening, seeds, seed heads, germ notes. Deliberate I draw sleeves of light over beach, old burrs young. Ears prink, sun just warm enough to wake a hog. Hear my wagtail, bending and dipping, sweet fulcrum. All my minnow fry, crows larking, high mud banks I'll lick. All of me cloaked in green, spreads across the earth, beetles mealing away, mycelium threading, moles marrowing my veins. River stirs and beds her curves to mine, catching light and young leaves, damp violet, quiet ash keys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Beautiful Springwood. So moving on from Springwood to our next reader, the poet Michelle, or M.L. Grieve. I'll call you, shall I call you M.L. or Michelle? I'm not sure which. Oh, Michelle.
Sorry, yeah, Michelle, thank you.
Welcome, Michelle.
I don't know what the ML is about, to be honest, but there we go.
Great.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello. So Michelle is reading her beautifully titled poem, Mama Has Hair of Silver Green Leaves. And just say a little bit about Michelle. So Michelle is a poet, writer, and very intriguingly, a tree seer, as I think we all are, but what a wonderful description. And her first drafts are written within the ancient forests of Hertfordshire, which also sounds really inspiring and wonderful. And Michelle is currently collating her first collection, so that's something to look forward to as well. So warm welcome to Michelle. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This poem was inspired, and Sally's poem really reminded me of this when we were in lockdown, taking my daughters out to the forest, constantly as we were allowed. And that the first line of this poem was my daughter, who just turned to me and went, "You always do this funny thing." So that's how it was born, and it made me look back on the healing that trees have actually, very real healing trees have done for me, and helped me through adoption trauma. And one tree in particular, my beloved willow tree, that is still in my family garden, much bigger now, but she really raised me. I spent most of my time with her, and that's really the impetus for the poem. Mama has leaves of silver green, I beg your pardon, Mama has hair of silver green leaves. You always do this funny sigh, my daughter knows me well, like you're inhaling the very leaves from every single tree. Soul-nurturing osmosis of life-gifting symbiosis, all-consuming comfort through my entire being. As I stand here, mothered, embraced by my kin, breathing dendrophiliac dopamine, I begin to root, to belong, to hear the community of my elusive ancestry speak through Earth's melodic song. Raised rootless, the tumbleweed girl, a waif with mycelium veins, sung sorrowful chords as mud pies were forged in the rain. I borrowed her root earth to heal my incessant umbilical pain. She offered the nutrition of family. Willow-cytherism awoken, a world made sense beyond splintering pretense of blood and meaning. My small world gleaming context of my family tree, peace reigned through the resplendent aspen canopy. I am safe, I am nurtured, I am protected and loved. There can be no rationale for the intense silent howling of my peace. I am home. 4 families, 3 names, 18 buildings, so much change, but finally I am home. Can I say, I'm so sorry if you heard my daughter, who's autistic, is running a bath, and I asked her not to, but she didn't quite get it, so I'm sorry about that.
That was absolutely lovely, Michelle. I couldn't hear anything at all. I don't know about other people, so don't worry about that. What a stunning reading, and such a beautiful exploration of these ideas of kinship and home and belonging, and such a healing and heartfelt piece of writing as well. And I love the, I wanted to point out these really kind of chewy, delicious textures of language that you brought in, like the dendrophiliac and the mycelium. And there was that lovely word, willow-cytherism. What is that? Can you tell us?
That's the smell of, no, it's not, I beg your pardon, that's not the right one. I'm so distracted by my daughter, I do apologise. No, cytherism is the wind, is the sound of the wind in the leaves.
Right, I thought so, yeah. What a gorgeous word. And it kind of embodies its sound, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Gorgeous, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on, our next reader is Joanna Wohlforth, reading The Survivor Tree, a piece of prose. And Joanna is a cultural historian, a lecturer and writer. Her first book, Milk, An Intimate History of Breastfeeding, will be published early next year by W&N. I think that's Weiner and Nicholson, but I may be wrong. And I believe that Joanna, Mel might be reading on behalf of Joanna. Is that right? Oh no, Joanna, I'm so sorry you're here.
That's okay. I'm here and I'm reading.
Wonderful, even better. Oh, warm welcome, Joanna. Really looking forward to hearing your piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Andrew, and the rest of the team, and to everybody else here for listening and being here today. The tree in this story is actually real, and it is this sort of little wizened, fragile thing, but its awkward position in relation to other buildings and things around it suggests that it predates all of these developments. And I love this idea of this little fragile thing kind of surviving all of these changes. And I think that's something that's kind of a thread that's run through, I think, a lot of the authors here, this idea of time spans and survival. And also the fact that the tree can hold within it multiple lives and be a host body for multiple lives, which connected with other work that I've been thinking about around our own bodies and how they can be host and carry within them multiple lifespans. This piece was originally non-fiction, but as I started researching, and the overwhelm of mythology is definitely true as well, the story of this woman in particular came to me, so I decided to veer out of my comfort zone into fiction and also into very tight word counts. Thank you. The survivor tree. My husband says, the tree is dying, and besides, we never eat the pears. Behind him, through his workshop window, I see the neat wall of saw blades and imagine how effortlessly the metal would slice through wood. I wince. But it's true, we never remember, and the fruit ends up rotting on the lawn. When we did pass one to our son, he winced at the wormholes. Besides, the tree blocks light to the workshop, leaning at a 45-degree angle, its branches are stubby and brittle. A friend once told me, in China, pear trees symbolize longevity, but Google can overwhelm me with metaphor and myth. Luxuriant moss gathers where the few branches join the narrow trunk, and although it grows on land that technically belongs to us, I feel no sense of possession. We moved here seeking a paired back life on the edge of suburbia. 2 months later, red blood and cramps, and she was gone. At dawn, I'd step across the wet grass in slippers and run my fingers across the trunk. I leant softly at first, afraid it was too weak to withstand the pressure. But each morning, trust grew, and I'd put more weight into my hand, feeling the textures of the cracked bark. After a minute together, I'd return indoors, temporarily replenished. My husband has returned to digging. The tree isn't dying, I say, it's just getting older. I look up and notice its blossom buds preparing to announce another spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. That was absolutely beautiful. And I feel like, as you say, it really ties in with the other pieces we've heard. And this idea of the body as a host and the tree as a kind of mother, and learning to listen to what it might be saying and learning to trust its different kinds of wisdoms and timescales. And I really love the idea of this kind of hope and healing flowing both ways between woman and tree and woman, and these lovely ideas of care and resilience as well. So absolutely lovely to hear that. Thank you, Joanna. Lots of lovely comments in the chat, by the way, for all the pieces that we've been hearing. So do make sure you have a look. And thank you everyone for being so generous to each other with this lovely feedback. Okay, so our next reader is Daniel Harwood with his poem Deadwood. Welcome, Dan. Hi.
Thank you.
Say a little bit about Dan before he introduces his poem. So Daniel Harwood is a London Wildlife Trust volunteer, and his writing is inspired by green spaces and the people and non-human living things he meets in them. So what a wonderful, wonderful place and way to be inspired in your writing. Thank you, Dan. Welcome and take it away.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for organising this event. It's been fantastic. And yes, so this poem is, I guess, draws from two areas of my life. One as a volunteer for the London Wildlife Trust in a very, very busy urban woodland, which can be exasperatingly noisy and overstimulating, with lots of people running about and dogs and shouting and music and all the rest of it. And it also arises from my work in mental health, working with people who desperately need peace and quiet. And it's about how maybe the users of green spaces should just sometimes show a little bit of respect to the wood, to the living things in it, and the people who need peace and quiet. But also, ultimately, I hope it's optimistic about however noisy and busy a wood is, you can still, I hope, always find little niches of peace and quiet and connect with the living things in there, which can provide very important healing for all of us. So this is called Deadwood. I have had it with forest bathers, foragers, and connectors with nature. What has this wood become? I'm snapped and separated in this trampled place, where adolescence dissolves in skunk, birdsong is smothered by labradoodle yelps, and the lycra drone of urban fitness fades and cracks the shy anemone. Last spring, this beach chapel's gentle sanctuary slowed my thready pulse, but now the broken copse pulls my plain bark scabs. Underneath, there is bone pink hardness. I am so raw that the brush of a fern burns me. My womb is a hard knot. Turning to leave, my last glance gathers in her boughs, still green and true. A squirrel scurries at her base, and an airborne licorice allsort gently thumps my leg. An early bumblebee, fuzzy fresh. Is it too late for green alchemy to soften me, to drain away down trickling brook my hate for human beings, and send out wind-soft strands of fairy silk to mend my splintered thoughts? The dogs have quietened now, so I will start by sitting still to meet this tree again, to meet her, her squirrel and her bee. Thank you.
Wonderful, Dan, beautifully read. I think I saw quite a few smiles when we encountered the airborne licorice allsort. Gently thumps my leg. And I think we really enjoyed that, the wry humour in this, kind of threaded in with this sort of honesty in unpacking these attitudes that we might have, and really listening to what the wood is saying. And I feel like the poem itself does that, and it peels back these kind of layers of perception and unwrapping, and then there's this wonderful kind of quietening down till we meet her squirrel and her bee. I love the way the poem comes down to that point of kind of deep perception. So wonderful. Thank you, Dan. Fantastic. Okay, our next reader is Cheryl Mokowski. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Cheryl. Cheryl is reading her prose piece, What to Do If a Tree Falls on My House. Intriguing title. And Cheryl walks in England and in the Caribbean. Her words appear in Ellipsis Scene, New Flash Fiction Review, the Urban Tree Festival, and Janus Literary. So it's wonderful to hear you tonight, Cheryl. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Andrew, and everybody who's come to hear the stories tonight. As a journalist, I found it quite hard in lockdown because I didn't have the same work as normal, and I turned to creative writing and discovered in particular flash fiction writing. And I became a bit obsessed with the idea of the hermit crab flash, where you can tell a story using a different form, like a recipe or a shopping list, or in this case, a how-to procedure, what the hell you should do if a tree falls on your house. And I was trying to convey the love of a particular tree and the tree's survival, and also the narrator's survival at the same time. What to do if a tree falls on my house? Evacuate. Zeus, the god of thunder and lightning and rain and wind and war, wallops the scarlet oak, grizzled old man bark groaning. Amputated blood branches and split-lobed foliage crackle through the roof. I don't want to leave the sacred tree as you try to remove me, swallow me whole. Call 999. You poke digits into your mobile, reminiscent of early seedlings nudging through soil. Magic emergency number to make everything better. Yet It won't bring back the resident chocolate buff tree creeper, scoffing spiders, the great spotted woodpeckers high hammering, the miner bees, the bracket fungi. Contact the insurance company. You say the riven oak can't be saved, but the insurance will cover costs for its disposal. Before performing sacrificial rites, I want assurance that tomorrow Laura will swing on the blossoming bough. Luke will rescue the hesitant tabby, tremble clinging to a branch. Granny's ghost will still rest on the bench, knitted out of tumbled timber from the great storm of 1987. Call 24-hour tree removal company. You ring the crisis tree service to be rid of the problem. But like the resilient oak, I won't be uprooted. I wound heal residual sawn bone under bark skin, salvage scarred lumber. I know who I am with the time-worn oak. I know every acorn, every taproot, every sapling, every season. Greek gods can never die. And as Zeus controls the movement of the stars in the sky, I plant acorns to rekindle the life cycle of the oak. Thank you, everybody.
Fantastic, Cheryl. Thank you. That felt quite epic, didn't it? Hearing that everything is there in that poem, and this really wonderful and striking kind of physicality and energy. And I feel like your piece really got into the heart of the kind of sacred space, or the quite vexed space between human and tree. But ultimately, it's a poem of hope. With that wonderful last line, I plant acorns to rekindle the life cycle of the oak. And I also wanted to highlight that in the Call 999 section, you poke digits into your mobile, reminiscent of early seedlings nudging through soil. Isn't that a brilliant kind of metaphor for what seedlings do and what we do with our fingers? Fantastic. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you. Okay, so our next reader is Gina Hedden, and Gina is reading her prose piece, Annie Stevens' Tree of Life. Welcome, Gina. Hello.
Hello, Sarah.
Hey, hello. So just a little intro to Gina. Oh. Gina's writing has been published on Easter Craig Lockhart. That sounds exciting. On audio platforms, in anthology, and in fiction and non-fiction magazines. So wonderful to hear your work, Gina, and welcome. We'd love to hear your piece.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Andrew and everybody else who's been involved in setting up this event as well, and the whole competition. I would like to thank Cheryl Markowski, first of all, because she encouraged me to enter this, and I wouldn't be here but for her. So thank you, Cheryl. And the tree I've written about is also real. I think Joanna said her tree was real. So my Juniperus rigida sadly died. I only discovered that in the course of writing this story, so I had to change the story I'd started. But I often went to the tree in the Botanic Garden in Edinburgh, and I did seek solace, underneath its branches on more than one occasion. So really, this has been inspired by my relationship with that tree and written in honour of it. Annie Stevens' Tree of Life. At 3 months old, one morning in May, my parents wheeled me into the Botanic Garden to the site of their favourite tree. It was a twig of a thing, scarcely big enough to bear the weight of its name, Juniperus rigida. But it was new, we all were, and its scent called my parents to Christmas, to walks in the wild, and to the soft forest floors of their courting. They dipped their fingers in dew-laden grass, baptized me in nature's green temple. By the time I was 33, my parents were dead and my first marriage failed. I sought out my tree, only fully knew why, when I saw it had changed shape to protect me. Its canopied branches wept like a willow, but unlike the willow that sighs disappointment, my juniper stood steady and strong. A child rounding my belly, my back to the juniper's trunk, I finally let my tears flow. At 63, I stopped still. Juniper as rigid as evergreen branches have dulled, and in places turned grey or brown. I run a hand through my silver black hair, my gammy knee twinging as I walk to the foot of the tree. I bow, and my juniper bows back. It seems we're agreed, so I crouch by its dying roots, dip my fingers in dew-laden grass, and, in this most sacred of temples, touch their tips to the head of my grandson. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. That was such a joy to hear you reading that. And I don't know about everyone else, but I found it incredibly moving and tender, and this beautiful level of description and observation. And then ending on this exquisite note of hope. I touched their tips to the head of my grandson. It's just perfectly judged, ending with the grandson's head. And I also love the way you calibrate these different lifetimes and stages, but yet there's still a lovely earthiness as well. It feels so real. So thank you very much, Gina. Gorgeous. Okay, so we're coming to our final reader, which almost feels like a shame because I just want to keep hearing your wonderful words. So our final reader of the night is Jackie Morrison with her poetry piece, Waiting for You. Hello, Jackie. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Jackie is from Scotland, I believe, and she was a finalist in Bloody Scotland 2021. That sounds exciting. With her novel in progress. And in moments in between, she also writes poems and flash fiction as well. So you're obviously writing in lots of different forms. Very inspiring, Jackie. So we're looking forward to hearing your poem. A warm welcome.
Thank you so much. And just to add my thanks to everyone else, to Andrew, to yourself, Sarah, and the volunteers, and all the readers and writers today. What a fantastic festival it's been. So my poem, Waiting for You, the inspiration did come during lockdown, but I wasn't quite able to write the poem until the end of restrictions, while we waited for that date. Anxious, excited, it reminded me of another time of waiting, and the trees that I can see from the windows were the change of the seasons and the reminder that things change, yet things are okay. So this is the poem, Waiting for You. Days, it's been weeks of days, out for an hour, dare not stay longer, watch the sky through bare branches. Back home, the door swells and contracts, dries and cracks, aging still. I read our table, it rings and knots, pages of life, nature's full stops where new growth joined the trunk. Days, it's been weeks of days, months of my shape changing. Alone, we are brave. Leaves unfurl, seed dust burls in the air. You're a girl, they say. I dream of tiny feet, deep ripples vibrating the room, child-sized shoes on the wooden floor. Days. It's been weeks of days, months much waiting for you. A lush canopy grows in the woods, filtering a warming sky, where shapes will dance in your eyes under rose confetti. And I daydream about me, who I'll be after. I'll be the one with the pram in the trees. Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful, Jackie. And what a lovely poem to end on. This wonderful last line, I'll be the one with the pram in the trees. And that just embodies that idea of hope and healing, and this wonderful theme that was chosen for this year. I also really loved the musicality and the sounds in your poem, and I've underlined the line, leaves unfurl, see dust burls in the air. Such a gorgeous line. And I love the way too that you write about gestation in all its different forms, and the idea of these rebirths of different selves, and how when a child is born, a new woman is born as well with the mother. So all of that embodied in your poem, really beautiful. So thank you everyone so much for reading and sharing your work and entering the competition and supporting and contributing to this beautiful book. Do think about buying it, as Andrew was saying, for friends and family and fellow tree seers and tree lovers. I'm going to hand back to Andrew now. He's going to say a little bit about the prizes, and then we come to the exciting announcements of our winners and runners-up. So over to you, Andrew.
Well, first off, I'm going to say a big thank you to all the authors for reading and having the courage to read as well. So well done, and thanks too to all of you for entering. I also want to thank Sarah for a fantastic piece of comparing. So far, so good. She's brilliant. Sarah, can you just tell us quickly what was your collection of poetry? I know I'm going to put a link in the chat now where people can get it from. But what's the poetry collection called?
I have two collections. This one came out in 2015 and it's called Slant Light. And then my second collection came out last year and that's called Bloom. And they're both with Liverpool University Press. So they have an imprint called Pavilion Poetry. So I feel really lucky to be published by them. And they're both, I've always written about nature and been inspired by our relationship with it. So yeah, it's wonderful to hear all your thoughts too. Thanks, Andrew.
Brilliant. No, well, thank you, Sarah. And I've popped the link in the chat. You boldly said that you would sign copies too. So
yes. Poets always want to
and gave away your email address, so you'll probably get a few emails. So that's terrific, and a big thank you. Okay, I'm just going to try and explain the prizes and how this kind of has come about. First of all, I just want to go back to Canopy. I know we're giving a book a really good plug, but we want to say that it's beautifully illustrated by Alban Lowe. And a chap called Chris Beswick was the editor, and Chris and Alban had a very short window of time between the closing of the competition and producing the book in time for the festival. And I think they've done an incredible job. So I'm sort of saying a big thank you to them. And I want to say thanks once again to the volunteer judges. They were volunteers. They read all the submissions that came in. Chris Cuningham and Anita Roy for poetry, and Sarah Wheeler and NG Bristow for prose. And without volunteers and lots of people joining in, we can't have and create events like this. So it's our job of bringing these things together is really easy, but it's really important that we get lots of support from people. So a big thank you to everyone who took part. And we've now come to that moment in time. Okay, so what happens now is we have a prize for the runner-up in each category and a prize for the winner. The runners-up and the winners each receive artwork which responds to their poem and is commissioned especially from Alban. And you see that as a print, and I do the dealings behind things, and you'll probably get it by the end of the week. So that's the score there. I can't show you the artwork because I haven't seen it myself. So we'll see what happens. And the winners also win this extraordinary accolade of being a writer in residence, which is a bit of a challenge for a festival that only takes place over 9 days, and some of it online. But anyway, fingers crossed, we will be able to make something of the writers in residence, and they'll get the opportunity of gaining access to all the different professionals who work within the Urban Tree Festival. We have lots and lots of tree people who give time and are very happy to be approached by our writers in residence. So we'll see how that goes. So drum roll for Sarah to make the announcement.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for, and I'm going to start with poetry. So our runner-up for the poetry category is Sally Duffin with her wonderful poem Medicine Woods. And shall we unmute ourselves and do a warm clap for Sally? Thank you, Sally.
Such a shock. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Okay, moving on to our runner-up of the prose category. So the runner-up of prose is Rosaline Lynch with her wonderful The Fish Tank Mangroves. So congratulations, Rosaline.
Thanks so much. Amazing. I love Albin's artwork. So fantastic. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, so moving on to the winners. So we'll start with poetry, and it gives me the greatest pleasure to announce that the winner of the poetry category is M.L. Grieve with Mama Has Hair of Silver Green Leaves.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. That is amazing. Thank you.
Congratulations, Michelle, and we'll be hearing you read your piece in a second, if that's
brilliant.
Okay.
Without the bath running this time.
And finally, the winner of the prose category is Joanna Wellforth with The Survivor Tree. So many congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And we'll be hearing you, I hope, in a minute. So huge congratulations to all our runners-up and winners, and huge congratulations to all of you for being here and hearing these wonderful pieces and being in this lovely, lovely anthology. So, Michelle, would you be happy to share your winning poem with us?
I'd love to. Thank you so much. Mama Has Hair of Silver Green Leaves. You always do this funny sigh, my daughter knows me well, like you're inhaling the very leaves from every single tree. Soul-nurturing osmosis of life-gifting symbiosis, all-consuming comfort through my entire being. As I stand here, mothered, embraced by my kin, breathing dendrophiliac dopamine, I begin to root, to belong, to hear the community of my elusive ancestry speak through Earth's melodic song. Raised rootless, the tumbleweed girl, a waif with mycelium veins, sung sorrowful chords as mud pies were forged in the rain. I borrowed her root earth to heal my incessant umbilical pain. She offered me family. Willow Sitha rhythm awoken, a world made sense beyond splintering pretense of blood and meaning. My small world gleaning context of my family tree. Peace reigned through the resplendent aspen canopy. I am safe. I am nurtured. I am protected and loved. There can be no rationale for the intense, silent howling of my peace. I am home. 4 families, 3 names, 18 buildings, so much change, but finally, I am home. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michelle, and many congratulations. Wonderful. Joanna, would you be happy to share your piece one more time?
Thank you. I'm very surprised. The Survivor Tree. My husband says the tree isn't dying, and besides, we never eat the pears. Behind him, through his workshop window, I see the neat wall of saw blades and imagine how effortlessly the metal would slice through wood. I wince. But it's true, we never remember, and the fruit ends up rotting on the lawn. When we did pass one to our son, he winced at the wormholes. And besides, the tree blocks the light to the workshop. leaning at a 45-degree angle, its branches stubby and brittle. A friend once told me, in China, pear trees symbolize longevity, but Google can overwhelm me with metaphor and myth. Luxuriant moss gathers where the few branches join the narrow trunk. But although it grows on land that technically belongs to us, I feel no sense of possession. We moved here seeking a paired back life on the edge of suburbia. 2 months later, red blood and cramps, and she was gone. At dawn, I'd step across the wet grass in slippers, run my fingers across the trunk. I leant softly at first, afraid it was too weak to withstand the pressure. But each morning, trust grew, and I'd put more weight into my hand, feeling the textures of the cracked bark. After a minute together, I'd return indoors, temporarily replenished. My husband has returned to digging. This tree isn't dying, I say. It's just getting older. I look up and notice its blossom buds preparing to announce another spring.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joanna. And again, many congratulations. Absolutely brilliant. So before I hand you back to Andrew, I think we should all unmute ourselves and give him a big round of applause for all this super organising he's done. Thank you, Andrew, for all your hard work. It's much appreciated.
Well, thank you. All right, well, fantastic timing. We're down to the last 3.5 minutes before we're expected to end. So I'm going to say once again, thanks to everybody, especially the authors who took part, not just the shortlisted, but obviously everyone else who had a go. And I'm really hoping that we'll run the competition again in next year. And we'll have a Urban Tree Festival again next year. It'll probably be from the 13th of May to the 21st, because we seem to always move that back another day. By the way, the 13th of May is my birthday, so you know, I'll expect presents and gifts on that day. Anyway, a big thank you to everyone. I hope everyone's had an opportunity of getting out and enjoying the trees in their local neighbourhood. And we'll say goodbye now. So thanks very much, everybody.